The dusty cardboard box sat in the corner of the prison cell like a forgotten treasure chest. Inside, hundreds of letters lay stacked in neat piles, their colorful envelopes now faded and yellowed with time. Each one was addressed in the same childish handwriting. To Mom, from Liam. Some had drawings of stick figures holding hands. Others had hearts colored in red crayon. All of them were unopened. Welcome to my YouTube channel. If you are new here, please subscribe to my channel. Turn on the bell notification icon so that you will be the first to be notified anytime I drop a new story. Sarah Martinez pressed her trembling hands against the cold metal bars as the guard unlocked her cell door. After 8 long years behind these walls, she was finally free. But the weight of the box in her arms felt heavier than the chains that had bound her for so long. "Ma'am, you sure you want to take all of these with you?" the guard asked, eyeing the overflowing box. "That's a lot of mail to carry." Sarah nodded, tears already forming in her eyes. She didn't trust herself to speak. How could she explain that these letters were from a son she had abandoned? A little boy who had kept writing to her every single day for 3 years. Even though she had never once written back, the prison gates clanged shut behind her, and Sarah found herself standing alone on the sidewalk. Cars rushed past, people walked by talking on their phones, and the world moved forward just like it always had. But for Sarah, time had stopped the moment she opened that first letter in her motel room. "Dear Mom." The letter began in shaky pencil marks. "My name is Liam. I am 10 years old. Miss Johnson from the foster home gave me your address. I hope you are doing okay. I think about you every day. Do you think about me too?" Sarah's hands shook as she read on. The letter was decorated with a drawing of a house with smoke coming from the chimney. 2 stick figures stood in the yard, one tall, one small, both smiling. At the bottom, in careful letters, Liam had written, "I can't wait to see you again, Mom. Love, your son Liam." But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the date on the envelope. The letter had been written 3 years ago, when Liam was just 7 years old. And there were hundreds more just like it. Sarah's heart pounded as she grabbed another letter. Then another. Each one told the story of a little boy growing up without his mother, sharing his hopes and dreams with someone who had never bothered to respond. In one letter, he wrote about learning to ride a bike. In another, he described his first day of school. There were letters about nightmares and birthdays, about friends and fears, about a child desperately trying to connect with a mother who seemed to have forgotten he existed. The cruel truth hit Sarah like a punch to the stomach. While she had been locked away, drowning in her own guilt and shame, her son had been writing to her every single day, and she had never even opened a single letter. But there was something else in that box that made Sarah's blood run cold. At the very bottom, underneath all the colorful envelopes, was a single piece of paper. It was a note from the prison mail system, stamped with an official seal. The message was short but devastating. "Inmate 47291, mail delivery suspended. Prisoner refuses to accept correspondence." Sarah collapsed to her knees right there in the motel room, the weight of 3 years of rejected love crushing down on her. She had not only abandoned her son, she had actively chosen to ignore his desperate attempts to reach her. And now, somewhere out there, was a 13-year-old boy who had probably given up hope of ever hearing from his mother again. But what Sarah didn't know was that Liam had never stopped writing. Even now, at this very moment, he was sitting in his foster home, pen in hand, writing letter number 1096. 3 years earlier, 7-year-old Liam had sat at the kitchen table of his new foster home, staring at a blank piece of paper. The pencil felt heavy in his small hands, and the words seemed impossible to find. "How do you write to a mother you can barely remember?" "Take your time, sweetie," Mrs. Henderson had said gently, placing a warm hand on his shoulder. She was his new foster mom, and she had kind eyes that crinkled when she smiled. "Just write whatever comes to your heart." That first letter had been simple. "Dear Mom, I miss you. When are you coming to get me?" But as the days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months, Liam's letters became longer and more detailed. He wrote about everything: his favorite cereal, the way the rain sounded on the roof, the stray cat that visited their backyard. Mr. and Mrs. Henderson watched with growing concern as their foster son maintained his daily ritual. Every morning before school, Liam would sit at the same spot at the kitchen table and write his letter. Every evening, he would carefully fold it, place it in an envelope and ask Mrs. Henderson to mail it. "Maybe we should tell him," Mr. Henderson whispered to his wife one night after Liam had gone to bed. "It's been 6 months, and she hasn't written back once." Mrs. Henderson shook her head sadly. "The social worker said his mother is unavailable. But look how much writing these letters helps him. He's doing better in school, he's making friends. Maybe this is his way of healing." What they didn't know was that Liam had overheard their conversation. He had come downstairs for a glass of water and stopped when he heard his name. The word unavailable echoed in his mind, but he didn't understand what it meant. Was his mom sick? Was she traveling? Was she just too busy to write back? The next morning, Liam's letter was different. "Dear Mom," he wrote, "I heard Mrs. Henderson say you're unavailable. I looked it up in the dictionary. It means you can't be reached right now. That's okay. I'll wait. I'll keep writing until you're available again." As time passed, Liam's letters became a window into his growing up. He wrote about losing his first tooth, about the school play where he played a tree, about the nightmare that woke him up crying. He wrote about his fears and his hopes, treating his absent mother like a diary that could somehow write back. "Dear Mom," he wrote on his 8th birthday, "I'm 8 now. Mrs. Henderson made me a chocolate cake with 8 candles. I made a wish before I blew them out. I wished for you to write me back. Maybe next year." The other kids at school started to notice. During lunch, while they talked about their parents, Liam would mention his letters. "My mom hasn't written back yet," he would say matter-of-factly. "But she will. She's just unavailable right now." Some kids were cruel. "Maybe she doesn't want to write back," a boy named Marcus said one day. "Maybe she doesn't even love you." Liam's face had turned red, and his hands had balled into fists. "She does love me," he had shouted. "She's just busy. She'll write back when she can." But late that night, alone in his room, Liam had wondered if Marcus was right. He pulled out his notebook and wrote, "Dear Mom, do you love me? I love you so much it hurts sometimes. Please write back. Even just one word. Please." Mrs. Henderson found him crying over the letter the next morning. "Oh, sweetheart," she said, pulling him into a hug. "Of course your mother loves you. Sometimes grown-ups have big problems that make it hard for them to do the things they want to do. But writing a letter isn't hard," Liam sniffled. "It only takes a few minutes." Mrs. Henderson's heart broke a little more. How could she explain that his mother was in prison? That she had been arrested for robbery when Liam was only 4 years old? That she had been sentenced to life in prison and might never come home? "Sometimes," she said carefully, "the people we love are in places where it's very hard to send letters. But that doesn't mean they don't think about us." Liam seemed to accept this explanation, and his letters continued. By his 9th birthday, he had written over 300 letters. By his 10th, it was over 700. The pile of stamps and envelopes on Mrs. Henderson's desk grew higher each week. But on the morning of his 13th birthday, something was different. Liam sat at his usual spot at the kitchen table, but this time he wasn't writing. He was just staring at the blank paper, his pencil lying untouched beside it. "What's wrong, honey?" Mrs. Henderson asked, setting down his breakfast. Liam looked up at her with eyes that seemed too old for his face. "Mrs. Henderson," he said quietly, "what if my mom is never coming back?" Before she could answer, the phone rang. Mrs. Henderson picked it up, and her face went pale. "Yes," she said into the receiver. "Yes, I understand. We'll be expecting you." She hung up and turned to Liam with a look he had never seen before, a mixture of fear and hope that made his stomach twist into knots. "Liam," she said, her voice shaking, "that was your social worker. She's coming over today. She has some very important news about your mother." The social worker's name was Miss Johnson, and she had been part of Liam's life since he was 4 years old. She was a tall woman with gray hair and glasses that always seemed to be sliding down her nose. Usually, she smiled when she saw Liam, but today her face was serious. "Liam, honey," she said, settling into the chair across from him in the living room. "I need to tell you something very important about your mother." Liam's heart began to race. He had been waiting for this moment for 3 years, but now that it was here, he felt scared. "Is she okay? Is she hurt?" Miss Johnson took a deep breath. "Your mother is alive and she's healthy. But Liam, she's been in prison all this time." The words hit Liam like a slap. "Prison?" he whispered. "Yes, sweetheart. She was arrested when you were very young for stealing money from a store. She was sentenced to life in prison, which means she wasn't supposed to come out for a very, very long time." Liam's world tilted sideways. All this time, he had imagined his mother in a faraway place, maybe working at a job that kept her too busy to write. He had never imagined bars and guards and locked doors. "But here's the thing," Miss Johnson continued gently. "Your mother is getting out. She's been given parole, which means she can leave prison early if she follows certain rules. She'll be released next week." Liam's mouth fell open. After 3 years of writing letters into what felt like a black hole, his mother was actually coming back. "She's coming home?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Well, not exactly home," Miss Johnson said carefully. "She'll be living in a halfway house in the city. It's a place where people go when they first get out of prison to help them adjust to life outside." Liam jumped up from his chair, his heart pounding with excitement. "Does she know about my letters? Did she get them? Did she read them?" Miss Johnson's face grew even more serious. "Liam, I need to tell you something else. Something that might be hard to hear." The excitement drained from Liam's face. "What?" "Your mother received every single letter you wrote. All 1,095 of them. They were delivered to her in prison, but—" Miss Johnson paused, searching for the right words. "She never opened them. She told the prison guards she didn't want to receive mail anymore." The silence that followed was deafening. Liam stood frozen in the middle of the living room, his mind struggling to process what he had just heard. All those mornings at the kitchen table, all those carefully written words, all those drawings and hearts and hopes, and she had never even opened them? "She didn't want my letters?" Liam asked, his voice cracking. "Oh, sweetheart," Mrs. Henderson said, moving to put her arm around him. "I'm sure she had reasons. Sometimes when people are in prison, they feel so ashamed and guilty that they can't face dash." "She didn't want my letters," Liam shouted, pulling away from Mrs. Henderson. "I wrote to her every single day for 3 years, and she threw them away." "She didn't throw them away," Miss Johnson said quickly. "She kept them all. When she was released yesterday, she took every single letter with her. She has them now." But Liam wasn't listening anymore. He ran upstairs to his room and slammed the door. Mrs. Henderson started to follow, but Miss Johnson gently stopped her. "Let him process this," she said. "It's a lot to take in." Upstairs, Liam threw himself on his bed and buried his face in his pillow. He felt like such a fool. All this time, he had been writing to someone who didn't even want to hear from him. All those kids at school who had teased him were right. His mother didn't love him. But then he remembered something. He sat up and pulled out his notebook, the same notebook where he had written over 1,000 letters. Without thinking, he picked up his pencil and began to write. "Dear Mom, Miss Johnson told me you're out of prison. She told me you never read my letters. I don't understand why. I don't understand anything anymore. But I'm still your son, and you're still my mom. I don't know if you want to see me, but I want to see you. I have so many questions. Why didn't you read my letters? Do you love me? Do you even remember me? I'm 13 now. I'm not the little boy you left behind. But I'm still waiting for you to write back. Love, your son Liam." He folded the letter carefully and put it in an envelope. Then he walked downstairs to where Miss Johnson and the Hendersons were still talking. "I want to see her," he said simply. Miss Johnson nodded. "I thought you might. She wants to see you too. She asked me to arrange a meeting." "When?" "Tomorrow afternoon, At the halfway house where she's staying. Liam's hands began to shake. Tomorrow he would finally see his mother again. After 3 years of one-sided conversations, they would finally be face to face. "Will you give this to her?" he asked, holding out the envelope. Miss Johnson took the letter and smiled sadly. "Of course, honey." That night, Liam lay awake staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow, all his questions would finally be answered. Tomorrow, he would look into his mother's eyes and find out if she had ever loved him at all. But what Liam didn't know was that across town, his mother was also lying awake, surrounded by over 1,000 unopened letters, finally reading the words of the son she had abandoned. And with each letter she read, her heart broke a little more. The reunion they had both dreamed of and feared was less than 12 hours away. But neither of them was prepared for what would happen when they finally came face to face. The halfway house was a gray building with peeling paint and bars on the windows. Liam held Mrs. Henderson's hand tightly as they walked up the front steps. His legs felt like jelly, and his heart was beating so fast he thought it might burst. "Are you ready, sweetheart?" Mrs. Henderson asked gently. Liam nodded, even though he didn't feel ready at all. How could anyone be ready to meet a mother who had been absent for most of their life? Inside, a woman at the front desk led them to a small visiting room with plastic chairs and a table covered in scratches. "She'll be right in," the woman said, then left them alone. The door opened, and Sarah Martinez walked in. Liam's breath caught in his throat. She was smaller than he remembered, with dark hair streaked with gray and eyes that looked tired and sad. She wore a simple blue dress and carried a cardboard box, the same box that had been in her prison cell. For a long moment, neither of them moved. They just stared at each other across the small room, taking in how much they had both changed. "Liam," Sarah whispered, her voice breaking. "Is that really you?" Liam couldn't speak. This woman looked like a stranger, but her eyes, he remembered those eyes. They were the same eyes that had kissed him goodnight when he was little, the same eyes that had cried when the police took her away. "You're so tall," Sarah said, tears streaming down her face. "You're so grown up." "I'm 13 now," Liam said, his voice barely audible. Sarah nodded, clutching the box tighter. "I know. I read all your letters. Every single one." The words hung in the air between them. Liam felt anger bubble up in his chest. "You read them? When? You never wrote back." "I know," Sarah said, sitting down heavily in one of the plastic chairs. "I know, and I'm so sorry. I was scared, Liam. I was so ashamed of what I had done, of the person I had become. I thought you were better off without me." "Better off without you?" Liam's voice cracked. "I wrote to you every single day for 3 years. Every day. And you couldn't even write back once." Sarah flinched as if he had slapped her. "I wanted to. Every day I wanted to. But I was so angry at myself, so full of shame. I thought if I didn't read your letters, it would hurt less. I thought if I pretended you weren't out there missing me, I could survive prison. But I was out there," Liam shouted, his carefully controlled emotions finally exploding. "I was out there wondering if you were dead, if you were sick, if you even remembered my name. I was out there loving you, and you were pretending I didn't exist." Sarah buried her face in her hands and sobbed. I know. I'm the worst mother in the world. I abandoned you and then I abandoned you again. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I don't deserve anything." Liam stood there, watching his mother cry, and felt his anger slowly drain away. He had imagined this moment so many times, but it was nothing like he had expected. He had thought he would run into her arms, or maybe that she would explain everything and make it all better. But this was messy and painful and raw. "I brought your letters," Sarah said, setting the box on the table. "I've been reading them all night. You told me about your first day of school, about learning to ride a bike, about the nightmares that scared you. You told me about your hopes and dreams and fears, and I wasn't there for any of it." Liam looked at the box, seeing his childish handwriting on envelope after envelope. "Why didn't you write back? Even once?" Sarah wiped her eyes and looked at him directly. "Because I was a coward. because I was selfish, because I was so broken inside that I couldn't even love my own son the way he deserved to be loved. Do you love me now? Liam asked, his voice small and vulnerable. Oh, baby, Sarah said, standing up. I have loved you every single day since the moment you were born. Even when I was too sick and broken to show it. Even when I was making the worst decisions of my life. You are the best thing I ever did. And I threw it all away. Liam felt tears burning his eyes. I thought maybe you didn't remember me. I thought maybe you had forgotten what I looked like. Never, Sarah said firmly. I have a picture of you when you were 4 years old. I've looked at it every day for 9 years. But you've changed so much. You're not my little boy anymore. No, Liam said sadly. I'm not. They stood there in silence. Two strangers who shared blood and history, but didn't know how to be a family anymore. I know I don't deserve another chance, Sarah said finally. I know I can't undo the years I missed or take back the letters I didn't answer. But if you'll let me, I want to try to be your mother again. I want to learn who you are now, and I want to be part of your life if you'll have me. Liam looked at her, really looked at her. She was different from the mother he had imagined while writing his letters. She was broken and flawed and human. But she was also sorry, and she was trying, and maybe that was enough to start with. I don't know if I can trust you, he said honestly. I don't know if we can be a real family. I don't know either, Sarah admitted. But I'd like to try. We can start small. Maybe we can write letters to each other. Real letters this time where we both write back. Liam almost smiled. I'd like that. Sarah reached into the box and pulled out a piece of paper. I actually wrote you a letter last night. My first letter to you in 9 years. She handed it to him, and Liam saw his name written in his mother's careful handwriting. His hands shook as he opened it. Dear Liam, the letter began. I'm sorry I'm 9 years late in writing this, but I want you to know that you are loved. You are wanted. You are the most important thing in my world, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to make up for the time we lost. Liam looked up at his mother, and for the first time in 3 years, he saw hope in her eyes. It wasn't the happy ending he had dreamed of as a little boy. It was complicated and painful and uncertain, but it was real. Mom, he said, and the word felt strange on his tongue after so many years. Yes, baby, I want to try too. Sarah smiled through her tears, and for the first time in 9 years, she felt like maybe she could be a mother again. They had a long way to go, and there would be more tears and more difficult conversations. But they had something now that they didn't have before. The truth and the courage to face it together. The boy who had written his mother every day for 3 years was finally getting his reply. And sometimes, love really does survive even when people don't know how to show it. But their story was just beginning. Comment part below.